Hello, everybody. Welcome back. Sorry we missed last Sunday, but we're back and we are going to continue talking about. We're going to finish this episode with the Book of Judges, so that way we're all set to start. What's next? Ruth, I think. Yeah, something like that. Now, where we left off was it's been a couple weeks, but basically Gideon had like 70 sons. The Israelites wanted Gideon or his sons to be their ruler, and he is sticking with Yahweh's thing where he didn't want there to be a king over them. See, Yahweh didn't want them to look up to or trust anybody but him. That's part of the mental slavery process. But anyway, so Gideon says, no, that's not going to happen. But when Gideon dies, there was a son of his who, apparently he didn't mind being king. He was okay with that. But the problem is Abimelech, which is one of Gideon's 70 sons. Here, let me read the actual passage because he's very treacherous. Hold on, let me find it. We are in Judges 9. I'm going to start with verse 1. But he murdered all of his brothers. He killed them all on one stone except for one, the youngest, whose name was Jotham. He escaped, but unfortunately the rest weren't so lucky. But anyway, let me read the passage. Okay, remember Judges 9 verses 1 to whenever I stop. Abimelech, son of Jerubbaal, which is Gideon. Keep in mind that Gideon, his real name was Jerubbaal, Baal. Yes, that was his real name. Okay, went to his mother's brothers in Shechem and said to them and to all of his mother's clan, ask all the citizens of Shechem, which is better for you, to have all 70 of Jerubbaal's sons rule over you, or just one man? And remember, I am your flesh and blood. I'm sure they all have different mothers. He went to his mother's clan. So, you know what I mean? There's 70 sons. They definitely have multiple mothers. But anyway, okay. Picking up verse 3. When the brothers repeated all this to the citizens of Shechem, they were inclined to follow Abimelech, for they said, he is related to us. This is Abimelech's relatives, not the rest of his brother's relatives, but his relatives. So naturally they would be inclined to follow Abimelech, because that's the one they're related to, is what they're saying. Okay, and then here, we'll pick up on verse 5. He went to his father's home in Ophrah, and on one stone murdered his 70 brothers, the sons of Jerubbaal. But Jotham, the youngest son of Jerubbaal, which is Gideon, escaped by hiding. Then all the citizens of Shechem and Beth Millo gathered beside the great tree at the pillar in Shechem to crown Abimelech king. So after Abimelech murders all of his brothers, the people in the area of Shechem and Beth Millo make him their king. You see, they're really determined to have a king, these Israelites. And listen, I think it's important to keep in mind what else is going on simultaneously in history at this exact same time. Around this exact same time, at least, this corresponds to the time in history of the Bronze Age collapse. And this was going on not just with these people in this area, but this is going on all over the world currently. Like, these great advanced human civilizations, technologically advanced, they were at the peak of the Bronze Age. All of a sudden they start collapsing. Like, not just one of them, but like all of them. Like, all of the ancient empires collapse one way or the other. You know what I mean? Obviously, as we see in history, it's impossible to kill every single person of any group. So some do survive, but maybe I should be fair. I don't know if anybody survives, who survived, if anyone died at all, or if it was just the civilization that was destroyed. You can destroy a civilization pretty easily. We're kind of witnessing it happen in real time now. But I'm sorry, let me get back on track. Basically, Bronze Age collapse. That's all happening during this time. And I find that very curious because there are many, many passages, like, for example, before Moses and his Israelites, you know, started invading all these territories, right? They were going to. They were planning on doing it 40 years before they did. Why didn't they? Because Yahweh told them that the people in the lands hadn't reached their peak sin yet. So just, you know, I thought that was interesting. And that Yahweh it was either Yahweh or his angel was going to go ahead of them and basically soften these people up for them to come and invade. So I can't help but wonder. I think this is the same group of like deities that's doing this all over the world. I mean, what are the chances that like how many it's like every ancient civilization, like all within a span of like what 50 years or how, like I don't even think it's that long. I think it's like a couple decades, and it's all gone. It's like all gone. You know what I mean? Their technology, their knowledge, like all this stuff, like this whole collapse of the Bronze Age, all simultaneously happening during corresponding with this time period. I just don't think it's a coincidence. I don't think it's a coincidence. Now, I am not saying that the Israelites are the sea people that they speak about in history that came and invaded and burned and plundered. I think they probably were one of the peoples that were doing that, but like obviously they didn't do this all over the world. I think there are other groups who are doing this simultaneously, other groups that Yahweh and his family were manipulating and programming. Because keep in mind, one of their biggest tools that they use is like, for example, I mean, they love to do this, like Yahweh and his son, for example, just two of them, Yahweh and his son Inorta. They love to like raise up their own groups simultaneously at the same time, train these groups to hate on the other group, even though him and Yahweh are related to each other. They'll train their groups to hate each other because that's the whole point. If you're keeping everyone, just like in the slavery manual, the Willie Lynch manual, if you keep everyone fighting and distrustful of everyone, but they trust you, the slave master, well, that's it. You've got them. Like, you've got them to do what, you know what I mean? So, and that's pretty much essentially what I think is happening during this Bronze Age collapse. But I mean, what do I know? I'm not a historian. I'm not, a scholar. I'm just, it's odd. You know what I mean? It's like, I can't, you got to speculate about these things because it's like they don't allow the quote experts to speculate on it publicly. So, you can't help but to speculate on it. But anyways, so all that happens, you know what I mean? Abimelech is now their king, even though Yahweh and Gideon both told them that they shouldn't have a king. He's a king. Jotham, who had escaped, was told about it eventually. And here, we'll pick up on Judges 9, verse 7. When Jotham was told about this, he climbed up on the top of Mount Gerizim and shouted to them, "Listen to me, citizens of Shechem, so that God may listen to you. On one day, the trees went out to anoint a king for..." Hold on, I'm sorry, my cat. One day, the trees went out to anoint a king for themselves. They said to the olive tree, "Be our king." But the olive tree answered, "Should I give up my oil, by which both gods and humans are honored, to hold sway over the trees?" So basically he's saying that like Jotham is saying he doesn't want to give up basically what he does have to rule over everybody. I mean, I guess that's what he's saying. I mean, who knows? Who knows? But and also Jotham brings up a really good point. He doesn't think that they're honoring Gideon in his memory and Yahweh, because they both made it clear that they weren't supposed to be kings. Here, Judges 9 verses 16. This is Jotham talking to the people of Shechem. "Have you acted honorably and in good faith by making Abimelech king? Have you been fair to Jerubbaal," which is Gideon, "and his family? Have you treated him as he deserves? Remember that my father fought for you and risked his life to rescue you from the hand of Midian." But today you have revolted against my father's family. You have murdered his 70 sons on a single stone and have made Abimelech, the son of his female slave, king over the citizens of Shechem, because he is related to you. So have you acted honorably and in good faith toward Jerubbaal and his family? If you have, may Abimelech be your joy, and may you be his too. But if you have not, let fire come out from Abimelech and consume you, the citizens of Shechem and Beth Millo. Let the fire come out from you. And yeah, basically he just repeats himself. And then Jotham flees them. People probably didn't take kindly to that critique. And so Jotham had to flee. And he escaped to a place called Beer, and he lived there because he was afraid of his brother. Okay. And here we go, Yahweh stirring up trouble again, because he just can't help it. He just can't help it. Okay, verse 22. After Abimelech had governed Israel for 3 years, God, aka Yahweh, stirred up animosity between Abimelech and the citizens of Shechem, so that they acted treacherously against Abimelech. God did this in order so that the crime against Jerubbaal's 70 sons, the shedding of their blood, might be avenged on their brother Abimelech and on the citizens of Shechem who had helped to murder his brothers. And so this animosity was getting stirred up between them. This guy named Gaul of Ebed, who moved into Shechem in this place, he started, they were all like having a drinking and eating and having a good time with his buddies. And, he started getting mouthy and he said, who is this Abimelech? Why do we got to serve this guy? You know what I mean? He's like, says all this like demeaning things about him and so on and so forth. Well, push comes to shove and Abimelech starts to come down from their hiding places in the mountains. And the same guy who was making fun of him, got picked on. They're like, what weren't these the guys you were making fun of? Go fight them. And so, he kind of had no choice. He kind of had to. He was kind of called out. He didn't want to look weak. So, he rides out to go fight Abimelech. Okay, but anyways, and then I already told you how Abimelech ended up dying in the last video. So I think that's about it as far as Abimelech goes. I just wanted to, cover some things that I missed last time. Because it was kind of a whole drama thing that was going on between these people. You know what I mean? And it seemed, the common theme, it seems to be to me, at least in these last couple chapters, is they really wanted like a leader. Like they were lost. And I don't know if it's just because of what was going on in their specific community. Maybe it had something to do with what was going on globally around them. I mean, it wasn't just them. There was havoc happening all over the place. So obviously they were looking for like a stable leader. You know what I mean? They needed one. And they were punished basically for needing. I mean, I'm not saying it was good that they all murdered like 70 brothers. That's a bit crazy. That's not what I mean. What I mean is they shouldn't have had to have done that. Gideon should have been responsible. Maybe picked his, I don't know, successor. I don't know. And who says it had to be one of his sons? You know what I mean? He should have just picked someone to guide them like he was doing. It was almost as if, like, if I can't do it, no one can. Or I don't know. I could be wrong, but like, I don't know. I just think it's a bit irresponsible for him to just to leave them high and dry like that. No plan in place on how they would go forward. But anyway, that's just me. So, okay. Moving on from Abimelech, who was just one of many judges. Of like the next judge was Tola. We're in Judges 10 now, verse 1. After the time of Abimelech, a man of Issachar named Tola, son of Puah, the son of Dodo, rose to save Israel. He lived in Shamir in the hill country of Ephraim, and he led Israel 23 years. Then he died and was buried in Shamir. They don't really say much about Tola. Excuse me. Jair was next after Tola. They don't say much about him Either they just say he led Israel 22 years and had 30 sons. And we're well into the generations where they don't live as long as they used to. So we're well into that point in time. Okay, and then after Jair is Japhath. Now, Japhath is an interesting character, and he's an important character. But trigger warning, it's a bit disturbing. I'm not going to lie. It gets a bit disturbing. But before Japhath rises up, because it's a pattern, Yahweh has to, stand back in the shadows and just wait for them to start, trying to like worship maybe, I don't know, a nicer God, a God that doesn't like mass slaughter them. I don't know. I could be wrong. Once they start worshiping these other gods, you see, I'm just, had enough of this idea that Yahweh was just trying to keep them from sacrificing their children. No, he literally, that has nothing to do with it. And he literally says, I'm a jealous God. It has nothing to do with them murdering their children. You know what I mean? He's not like a moral character in all of this. He really isn't. In fact, you will see with Japhath in just a few minutes how that actually, doesn't pass the smell test, because he definitely does allow the child sacrifices. He just didn't want them to happen for other gods. That's it. He wasn't against it. He just didn't want them to do it for other gods. That's it. And we'll get into that in just a second, because Japhath does something very questionable. Okay. Basically, okay. Sorry, let me calm down. Judges 10 will begin with verse 6. Again, the Israelites did evil in the eyes of the Lord. They served the Baals and the Ashtoreths and the gods of Aram, the gods of Sidon, the gods of Moab, the gods of the Ammonites, and the gods of the Philistines. Side note, possibly because they're all the same. I don't know. Maybe they're not. But they all do have similarities, all these ancient pantheons. But anyway, let me get back to the dumb phone. Sorry, guys. My notifications are going off like crazy. Okay. Let me continue. And because the Israelites forsook the Lord and no longer served him, he became angry with them. See, it had nothing to do with them sacrificing their children. Okay. It was because they stopped serving him. Okay. And he sold them into the hands of the Philistines and the Ammonites. Pause. How did he sell them? Like, that is specific wording. He sold them. What did he get in return for selling them? What did he get in return? Because that implies that it was an exchange that took place between Yahweh and the people of these nations. What was it? Anyway, verse 8. Who that year shattered and crushed them? Meaning the Philistines and the Ammonites crushed them that year. And for 18 years, they oppressed all the Israelites on the east side of the Jordan in Gilead, the land of the Amorites. Okay, that is on, I guess would be in modern day Jordan today, I think. The Ammonites also crossed the Jordan to fight against Judah, Benjamin, and Ephraim. Israel was in great distress. Then the Israelites cried out to the Lord, "We have sinned against you, forsaking our God and serving the Baals." That's interesting. It's almost like it's like a whole group. It sounds like it's not just like one deity or two. It almost sounds like a whole group. But anyway, okay. Then Yahweh replies, when the Egyptians, the Amorites, the Ammonites, and the Philistines, the Sidonians, the Amalekites, and the Midianites oppressed you, and you cried to me for help, did I not save you from their hands? But you have forsaken me and served other gods, so I will no longer save you. Go and cry out to the gods you have chosen. Let them save you when you are in trouble. But the Israelites said to the Lord, "We have sinned. Do with us whatever you think best, but please rescue us now." Then they got rid of the foreign gods among them and served the Lord, and he could bear Israel's misery no longer. When the Ammonites were called to arms and camped in Gilead, the Israelites assembled and camped at Mizpah. The leaders of the people of Gilead said to each other, "Whoever will take the lead in attacking the Ammonites will be head over all who live in Gilead," meaning the Israelites. And even though the Gileadites, I think, are different than the Israelites, apparently they're working together. Or are they going to be called Gileadites from now on? I'm not exactly clear on that. Leave that to a historian to explain further these races. So I'm not quite sure. But Japhath was definitely fighting on Israel's side. Now let's get into Japhath. Like I said, this is not for the faint of heart. This is not for the faint of heart. Okay. Trigger warning. We're in Judges 11. Okay. Japhath, the Gileadite, was a mighty warrior. His father was Gilead, and his mother was a prostitute. Okay, so the Gileadites, it sounds like they're a family, possibly. Okay, it's a family. I'm sorry for my ignorance. I'm not a scholar. I'm not a historical scholar. Okay. Gilead's wife also bore him sons and daughters, and when they were grown up, they drove Japhath away. Interesting. Why would they drive their own father away? "You are not going to get any inheritance in our family," they said, "because you are the son of another woman." Dang. They didn't like Japhath because he was a bastard, basically. Okay, I got it. So Japhath fled from his brothers and settled in the land of Tob, where a gang of scoundrels gathered around him and followed him. Okay, so basically Japhath kind of became this kind of like rogue, whatchamacallit, like mercenary, and he had his own little crew. You know what I mean? That's what it sounds like to me. Okay. Sometime later, when the Ammonites were fighting against Israel, the elders of Gilead went to get Japhath from the land of Tob. "Come," they said, "be our commander so we can fight the Ammonites." And Japhath said to them, "Didn't you hate me and drive me from my own father's house? Why do you come to me now when you're in trouble?" And the elders of Gilead said to him, "Nevertheless, we are turning to you now. Come with us to fight the Ammonites, and you will be head over all of us who live in Gilead." And Japhath answered, "Suppose you take me back to fight the Ammonites, and the Lord gives them to me. Will I really be your head?" The elders of Gilead replied, "The Lord is our witness. We will certainly do as you say." So Japhath went with the elders of Gilead, and the people made him head and commander over them. Now, at this point, I'm sure that Japhath, had this inferiority complex from being the son of a hooker and being driven out of his own family, and had to get all these other outcasts around him to feel like family. So I'm sure he has a pretty big inferiority complex at this point. Okay, but he went with them, and he repeated all his words before the Lord in Mizpah, because remember, the Ark of the Covenant, aka the Lord, Yahweh, is in Mizpah. At least how they communicate with him is there. Okay. So then Japhath sent messengers to the Ammonite king with the question, "What do you have against me that you have attacked my country?" So, to be fair, he does at first try to solve it with some diplomacy. He does try. I'll give him credit for that. Then the king of the Ammonites answered Japhath's messengers, "When Israel came up out of Egypt, they took away my land from the Arnon to the Jabbok, all the way to the Jordan. Now give it back peaceably." Basically, the Ammonites are demanding their land back. That's understandably, it was stolen from them. And Japhath sent back messengers to the Ammonite king, saying, "This is what Japhath says. Israel did not take the land of Moab, nor the land of the Ammonites. But when they came up out of Egypt, Israel went through the wilderness to the Red Sea and on to Kadesh. Then Israel sent messengers to the king of Edom, saying, 'Give us permission to go through your country.' They weren't trying to take the country, they were just trying to go through it. But the king of Edom would not listen. They sent also to the king of Moab, and he refused. So Israel had to stay where they were in Kadesh. And they traveled through the wilderness, skirting the lands of Edom and Moab, passed along the eastern side of the country of Moab, and camped on the other side of the Arnon. Basically, they were doing the long way. They had to go the long route because no one was letting them pass through. And they did not enter the territory of Moab, for the Arnon was its border. Then, he's still talking about the same time period. Then, this would be when Moses and Joshua's time. Then Israel sent messengers to Sihon, king of the Amorites. Remember, the Amorites are different than the Ammonites. Okay, the Amorites are in the west, the Ammonites are in the east. Okay. The Amorites who ruled in Heshbon, and said to him, "Let us pass through your country to our own place." Sihon, however, did not trust Israel to pass through the territory. And instead, he mustered all of his troops and encamped at Jahaz and fought with Israel. Not only they didn't let them pass through, they actually came out and started fighting with Israel. Then Yahweh gave Sihon and his whole army into Israel's hands, and they defeated them. Then Israel took over all the land of the Amorites who lived in that country, capturing all of it from Arnon to the Jabbok, from the desert to the Jordan. Now, since the Lord God of Israel has driven out the Amorites before his people Israel, what right have you to take it over? Will you not take what your god Chemosh gives you? They worship Chemosh. Likewise, whatever the Lord our God has given us, we possess. Basically saying your God gives you your stuff, our God gives us our stuff. Are you any better than Balak, son of Zippor, king of Moab? Did he ever quarrel with Israel or fight with them? For 300 years, Israel occupied Heshbon. Sorry, couldn't pronounce it. The surrounding settlements and all the towns along the Arnon. Why didn't you retake them during that time? I have not wronged you, but you are doing me wrong by waging war against me. Let the Lord, the judge, decide the dispute between this day the Israelites and the Ammonites. So the king of Ammon, however, paid no attention to the message Japhath had sent. Then, this verse is very interesting, I find. We're in Judges 11, verse 29. The Spirit of the Lord came on Japhath. Now, what does that mean? Exactly. I don't know. They say that a lot. It's almost like they're getting possessed. I don't know. But anyways, it gets interesting here in verse 30 because now the diplomacy isn't working. They got to actually engage in battle. So, verse 30, and Japhath made a vow to the Lord. If you give the Ammonites into my hands, whatever comes out of the door of my house to meet me when I return in triumph from the Ammonites will be the Lord's, and I will sacrifice it as a burnt offering. Keep that in mind. Remember, that was Judges 11, verse 31. Okay. Then he went and he goes and fights the Ammonites, and the Lord keeps up his end of the bargain. He gives them into his hands, and he devastated 20 towns. And they subdued Ammon, the Ammonites. Unfortunately, we get to verse 34. It gets disturbing because, yes, Japhath won and was victorious in battle, but now he has to keep up his end of the bargain. And guess who walks out of his house once he comes home? Let me read. We're in Judges 11, verse 34. When Japhath returned to his home in Mizpah, who should come out to meet him but his daughter, dancing to the sound of timbrels? She was only a child. Except for her, he had neither son nor daughter. So this is his only child. His only child. Let me continue. Verse 35. When he saw her, he tore his clothes and cried, "Oh no, my daughter." You have brought me down, and I am devastated. Listen to that. She brought him down. I'm sorry, let me continue. And I am devastated. I made a vow to the Yahweh, to the Lord, that I cannot break. Crazy how he just immediately, instinctively blames her and not himself for making this horrible deal. She responds, verse 36, My father, she replied, you have given your word to the Lord. Do to me just as you promised. Now that the Lord has avenged you of your enemies, the Ammonites. But grant me this one request, she said. Give me 2 months to roam the hills and weep with my friends, because I will never marry. You may go, he said, and he let her go for the 2 months. She and her friends went into the hills and wept, because she would never marry. After 2 months, she returned to her father, and he did to her as he had vowed, and she was a virgin. I don't know, why. We already know she's a child, so obviously she's a virgin, but they felt the need to mention that, and I think that's interesting. Because we got 2 possible scenarios going on here when he's bringing her to Yahweh. A, he actually, burns her and cooks her, his daughter. Or B, which I don't know, you tell me, is it any better? She is like a virgin sex slave to Yahweh. So I don't know, you tell me, which is better? Which do you think this little girl, which fate do you think, would have been better for her? Sex slave or being cooked and eaten? I don't know. But yet it's another example of child sacrifice. An open, blatant example of child sacrifice. So obviously Yahweh did not mind it. He was okay with it as long as the children were being sacrificed to him and not other gods. He was okay with it. So I don't know how people come up with this rationalization. You hear it all the time that the God of the Israelites wanted to protect them from the evil Canaanites. The evil Canaanites. They were just eating and slaughtering all their children. They were just so evil, 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 evil. Well, this seems pretty goddamn evil to me that he would even make this kind of deal, knowing he had one child. Who else would come out of his door? Maybe he was hoping it was his wife. I don't know. But it ended up being his daughter. And Yahweh was okay with it. He was okay with it. And check this out. When we get to Judges 12, we find out there was a whole nother army that Japheth could have utilized. The Ephraimites. You see, they kind of learned about this all late in the game. They were upset. They were really upset. And they went to Japheth. And here we are, Judges 12, verse 1. The Ephraimite forces were called out and they crossed over to Zaphon. They said to Japheth, Why did you go fight the Ammonites without calling us? We're going to burn down your house over your head. Great response. And then Japheth answered, I and my people were engaged in a great struggle with Ammonites. And although I called, you didn't save me out of their hands. So he's claiming he did call them. I guess they just missed the message. And when I saw that you wouldn't help, I took my life in my hands and crossed over to fight the Ammonites. And the Lord gave me victory over them. Now why have you come up today to fight me? And Japheth probably a little ticked and irritable. He had just sacrificed his own daughter to either be food or sex slave to a reptile. But so naturally, I'm sure he's on edge. And then, so he, with trigger impulses, he immediately gets his buddies, the Gileadites, and then starts fighting the Ephraimites. His relatives. I'm assuming they're related. Then the Ephraimites, and then the Gileadites strike them down because the Ephraimites had said, You Gileadites are renegades from Ephraim and Manasseh. The Gileadites captured the fords of the Jordan leading to Ephraim, and whenever a survivor of Ephraim said, Let me cross over, the men of Gilead asked him, Are you an Ephraimite? If he replied no, they said, All right, say Shibboleth. And if he said Sibboleth, because he could not pronounce the word correctly, they seized and killed him. So they were basically testing people. They were like killing the Ephraimites. And they were testing their accent. If they said they weren't Ephraimite, they would make them say that word. And if they didn't say it the correct way, they would kill them. Great, right? 42,000 Ephraimites were killed at that time. 42,000 Ephraimites. Yep. Led by Japhath. And Japhath led Israel 6 years. Then Japhath the Gileadite died and was buried in the town of Gilead. Well, he didn't get very long. After all of that, he didn't get very long. He even killed his own child. Allegedly his only child. But anywho. Now we got some more judges before we actually get to the Samson story. We've got Ibzan. And I find this interesting because, listen, Ibzan seems to be above the rules than everybody else. And I don't think I really appreciate that. Judges 12 verse 8. So this is after Japhath. After him, Ibzan of Bethlehem led Israel. He had 30 sons and 30 daughters. He gave his daughters away in marriage to those outside his clan. And for his sons, he brought in 30 young women as wives from outside his clan. And he led Israel for 7 years. And when he died, he was buried in Bethlehem. Now, why was he allowed to bring outsiders into the clan? No one else was. I think that's interesting. I don't know if I like it, but I guess it is what it is. Certain rules are better for some people than others, especially when it comes to Yahweh. You know, he loves to do that. Listen, that is one of the hallmarks of making like a mental slave, right? Or making a group of people your slaves, is basically, it's the oldest trick in the book. You take a certain group of them with some similarities, some similar traits. You say, okay, you all are better than all the rest. You're going to be in charge. You're going to be the slave drivers. You're going to get more food. You're going to get better benefits, bigger houses than everybody else. You're going to be the chosen ones, and you're going to lead over everybody else. They've done studies in psychology when you do things like that. And it always turns out the same. It turns out the same every time. People get carried away. They start, in the compartmentalizing in their mind, becoming increasingly racist. You know what I'm trying to say. Like, it just creates division. And you do this to people when you want to control them, when you want to keep their focus off you and on fighting each other. That's what you do. It's like the oldest trick in the book. And it's literally in the Bible. In fact, I think we're seeing it right now. We're seeing it right now. You notice that there's like a certain group of people in the world right now as we speak who claim to be chosen specifically by God. Chosen by God, and you're not allowed to say otherwise. Now, this God, I don't think he told them this, but if they are actually successful in eliminating everybody but them, they're next. They're slaves too. Just because their cage is bigger doesn't mean they're not in a cage. That's something I don't think they've realized yet. But anyway, let me get back on topic. Back to this time period in the Bible, not to now. Okay. Then after him, the next judge was named Elon. Elon, the Zebulunite, led Israel 10 years. And then Elon died and was buried in Ajalon in the land of Zebulun. After him, Abdon, son of Hillel from Parathim, led Israel. He had 40 sons, 30 grandsons who rode on 70 donkeys, and he led Israel 8 years. Very rich, sounds very wealthy. Then he died and was buried in Ephraim, in the hill country of the Amalekites. So, okay. Don't worry, just remember the Amalek and the Amalekites. It comes up a lot in the Bible, and it's actually coming up again currently, because history and the present feel like they're pretty parallel right now, don't they? Okay. I think I'm going to stop there, and we will get into, the story of Samson and all that next maybe on Wednesday. I'm going to try to get back to this twice a week thing. Yeah, it's been a lot going on lately in the world, like with the war and everything in Iran. And I just wanted to say that, like, wherever you are in the world, just stay safe, okay? We got to stop, we got to stop believing these demons, these reptiles, when they come down and divide us like this, okay? We got to stop falling for it, because this is so unfortunate, because like the Israelites and like the Arabs and like the Iranians and like all of them, they all come from like a common ancestor. Let's say like Abraham was like a legitimate person. They all pretty much descend from him. So they're all related, distantly maybe, but they're all related. They're Semitic people. They're Semitic people. And like these are the people who invented the wheel, came up with the first writing system. Like they are so innovative and contributed so much in the world. And it was like, imagine if they weren't diverted against each other all these thousands of years ago. Imagine where our world would be right now. If they weren't, torn apart and divided like at the Tower of Babel. Imagine what kind of world we'd be living in right now. I mean, I could be wrong, but I'm willing to bet it would be a much more peaceful world. It would be a cleaner world. It would be a better world. We would all be united. We'd all be getting along. Now suddenly we're all talking like getting along is a bad thing, and like it just, everything is so backwards. Like the programming, it just when you really wake up and you see how much people have been manipulated over the years and stuff, it's heartbreaking. It's sad. And you just know instinctively this is not a human doing this. First of all, humans don't live that long. Okay? This has been going on generation after generation. The same system, the same tactical rule book. Like, read the Willie Lynch letter. I'm telling you, the parallels to what Yahweh did to the Israelites and what Willie Lynch was telling the colonists to do to their slaves is uncanny. It's almost as if they had the same teacher, but that's more conspiracies for another day. But it is uncannily similar. Like, uncanny. I'm telling you. I am telling you. And, but yeah, we'll get back more into it on Wednesday and talk more about this pretender god Yahweh, aka Enlil, and his son Ninorta, aka Allah. Yes, they are related. They are father and son. They are father and son. And their followers, they have devoted to turning against each other and to make them fight each other. Enlil versus Ninorta. Christians, Jewish versus Muslim. That was the plan. That was the plan. Of course, yeah, there is a third one in there. It's the Christians, the Jews, and the Muslims. You see, in my opinion, I think Christianity was never supposed to happen. I'm not saying it's the right religion either. It's not. It's not. It's another system of control. I'm just saying it wasn't supposed to happen. That was like their emergency. They had to make Christianity. It was like an emergency thing because people were waking up. People were reading the teachings of Jesus and they panicked. They burned most of Jesus' teaching, edited the others, popped the name Christianity on it, and bam, there was the Catholic Church. So that was kind of like an emergency thing they did. So maybe that's kind of like co-run by Enlil and Ninorta, or maybe they gave the crown to that system to Marduk. They're Yahweh's nephew, Ninorta's cousin, because they're all related. They're related. It's the same ugly ass Anunnaki family that has been controlling humanity for too long. For too long. You know why they are so desperate to control us? Because they are scared of us. And it literally says that in the ancient text, like in like the Atrahasis and like the Enuma, it literally says that like Yahweh and Enlil, same person, was worried that it's like, man, and it says in the Bible too, when they were building the Tower of Babel, it's like, man, if they can do this when they're united, they can do pretty much everything. Well, we got to put a stop to this. We have got to stop this. And he did. He's been successfully stopping it for years now. And I really hope that this is a turning point. And yes, on the good hand of what's going on right now, a lot of people are waking up to this. A lot of people are waking up to this. But on the other hand, it's like the deep state are still in power. They're seeing everybody wake up. My worry is they're going to panic and they're going to start. I think we need to wake up faster because the deep state, they're moving, they're making moves that are questionable, and everyone's just kind of still sleepy from waking up, not really sure where to begin, overwhelmed. You got all these you know, let me give you an example. This is how the deep state truly operates. You know how humpback whales fish, especially like in the Atlantic Ocean? It's like a group of them, like 6 or 7 of them will come together, right? And they'll make these like big circular bubble cages, right? They'll make like a cage of bubbles. They'll go down deep, start blowing bubbles, and it'll be like a circular cage of bubbles that the fish, they can't like go side to side or down. All they can do is go up, which forces them up into the surface, into like basically like a whole group of them and trapped in this cage of bubbles. So a whole school of fish will start going up to the surface. Then comes the first humpback whale with his mouth wide open, getting as many fish as he can. Obviously, he's not going to get that whole school of fish. There's going to be at least 70% of them escape. He's only going to get a certain chunk. Then right next to him, collecting the backwash, is another humpback whale, comes up with his mouth open to collect them. Now, he can't collect all of them either. There's still more that escape. Then comes the third humpback whale with his mouth open to collect those that escape. That is how the deep state operates. Basically, you got your like CNN and your Fox News people who tell blatant lies, what they actually want you to believe in blatant lies, and a lot of people will believe it. But then there are those who don't. They're like, man, this don't seem right. This don't feel right. This don't sound right. It doesn't make sense. I'm not going to listen to this. I'm going to go look for truth elsewhere. So then let's say they go to like YouTube or something or social media and they come across like, I don't know, just as an example, like someone like Alex Jones, who seems like he's like, oh my gosh, yes, I like what this guy's saying. He's right. There is a deep state global cabal. But then Alex Jones diverts you from the real global cabal and is like, it's all the Democrats. It's the Democratic deep state. It's all the Democrats. So then those people are focused on the wrong thing. They think, oh my God, it's all the Democrats. They're the deep state. Of course. But then some people are like, well, that doesn't sound right either. Because there's going to be good and bad people on both sides. So that doesn't really sound right either. I don't think I necessarily believe that. I'm going to keep looking. And then, as much as I love her now, they come across people like Candace Owens, who 99% of the things she's saying is truth. And she's doing 99% of good things. But she's got her own little trap, whether she realizes it or not, I don't know. And that's Christianity. She's acting like all these other religions are like traps set up by the deep state to control, and totally overlooking her own Catholic Church, who has literally been caught, probably more than most other religious institutions, exploiting and harming children. Like, oh my gosh, the Catholic Church is notorious for it. But yet she somehow thinks that that system is not part of the overall evil system. And listen, those are just some examples. There are many others who are like coming out here and they're saying a lot of good things, a lot of true things. But that's the whole point. They're the 5th and 6th humpback whale there to catch all the strays who managed to escape the first 5 humpback whales, the first 5 traps, and they come along to scoop up the ones that weren't caught. See what I'm saying? And I have nothing against like people like Alex Jones and Candace Owens. I have nothing against them. They were just examples. Tucker Carlson's another one. I don't even necessarily think that they know that. Like maybe they truly do believe what they're saying is true. Especially Candace. Like she really does ring as honest. But like someone as smart as her, it's like I can't help but wonder. It's like surely you know this about the Catholic Church, but yet you're ignoring it. I don't know. It's strange to me. I mean, like, so yeah, That's how the deep state works. And maybe I'm wrong about who the players are, but I'm not wrong about the method. Those are the methods they use. Those are the methods they use. And one more thing before I go. Whitney Webb said something that is so true. Everyone needs to be extremely careful about these ex-CIA, ex-military podcasters who are on YouTube getting all these views and all this other stuff, saying, oh, I'm a good guy, I left the CIA and I'm here to tell you what the CIA is about. And the whole time they're like withholding all the evil that the CIA does, and they're like whitewashing it all. They're whitewashing it all, trying to make it look good, like rehabbing their reputation of the CIA. And I won't stand for it. I won't stand for it. The CIA has literally done nothing to help humanity. Nothing at all. They've only ever helped the powerful. Period. And we're brainwashed to think that they gotta go. They gotta go. And I'm starting to think that this whole... I think David Icke has a point when he says, like, people like Ian Carroll and Candace Owens who just blow up despite the fact they're talking against the global leaders. It's suspicious. It's weird. Because, like, there's people like David Icke and Kathy O'Brien who have been talking about this stuff for decades upon decades upon decades, who get no credit whatsoever, who have been laughed at for years. And, like, people like Candace Owens are, like, sitting there and like, you know, sitting there saying, you all need to wake up. I'm telling you. I've been telling... No, you haven't been telling people. You were just as brainwashed as everybody else. Stop it. Like, stop acting like you... It kind of irks me. I'm not going to lie. It kind of irks me. And I can't imagine how, like, I've only been talking about this stuff for like a year now. I can't imagine how people like David Icke and Kathy O'Brien feel hearing people talk like that. It would piss me off so bad. But anyway, I hope you all enjoyed this biblical episode of Biblical History. And yes, hopefully maybe I've helped in pointing out some parallels that are going on right now to what was going on back then. But yeah. I'm going to try to be back on Wednesday. See you guys.